thought becoming a mother would be the most vulnerable moment of my life, and it was, but not for the reasons I imagined. My husband was supposed to be by my side. My best friend was supposed to protect me. Instead, they betrayed me in the most unimaginable way at the moment I needed love the most. Part 1. The Glow and the Blindness. I was 30, glowing, and 8 months pregnant when Elena moved in. She'd been my best friend since middle school, the kind of person you don't question because their name is etched into every chapter of your life. We had friendship bracelets that never broke, secrets that were never told, and birthdays never missed. When her apartment flooded and she had nowhere to go, it wasn't even a discussion. "Move in," I told her. "Your family." Derek, my husband, nodded along. "Of course, for as long as you need." Elena had always been a little more glamorous than me. Long legs, perfect skin, a laugh that made people want to follow her, but it never mattered. We were different kinds of women, but we never competed, or so I thought. At first it was fun. She cooked dinner sometimes, helped clean when I was too exhausted from the pregnancy. She even started calling the baby our little peanut. Derek smiled more with her around. I thought it was the lightness she brought to the house. I didn't notice the glances. I didn't clock the way her laughter shifted when he entered the room, or how he started wearing cologne again, even on days he worked from home, because I trusted them. Because I was preparing for birth, not betrayal. I was in labor for 19 hours. Derek held my hand, whispered strength into my ears, and cut the cord when our daughter Ava finally entered the world. Tears filled his eyes as he kissed my forehead and whispered, "She's perfect." He stayed at the hospital for 3 hours after the birth, and then he left. "Just to grab a few things," he said. "I'll be back in the morning." I didn't think twice. I was high on adrenaline, on life, on the warm weight of my daughter sleeping on my chest. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't learn for 2 weeks, was that while I was lying in that hospital room, stitching myself back together, Derek and Elena were in my bed, together. And it wasn't the first time. It was Ava's first diaper rash that led me to the drawer in the hallway where we kept ointments and creams. That's where I found the receipt. One night before I gave birth, 2 cocktails, a hotel room. At first I thought it was nothing, a work receipt, a mistake. But when I confronted Derek calmly, desperately hoping for any explanation that didn't sound like betrayal, his face crumpled, not with guilt, but with relief. "I'm sorry," he said, barely a whisper. "I didn't know how to tell you." And then he said it. "It's been going on for a while. Elena and I, it just happened. Just happened. Just happened while I was waddling around the house trying to keep our marriage alive. Just happened while I was preparing to give life to our daughter. Just happened in the bed I had picked out, the one I imagined nursing Ava in. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not right away. I walked into Ava's room, lifted her from her crib, and rocked her slowly, steadily, like the ground beneath me wasn't breaking. And then I looked down at her, all innocence, all future, and made a silent vow. We were never going to be second to anyone again. Not in this house, not in this life. Part 2, the fallout and the face behind the mask. The silence after his confession was louder than any scream could have been. I stood there, holding Ava in my arms, my world split open at the seams. Derek didn't follow me into her room. He just stood in the hallway, shoulders hunched, like a child waiting for punishment. I didn't speak to him that night, or the next. I took care of Ava, fed her, changed her, held her close like a shield against the horror unraveling around us. I was running on pain and instinct, the kind of survival mode new mothers aren't supposed to enter because of betrayal. 2 days later, Elena came home while Derek was at work. She walked into the living room like it was still hers, like nothing had shifted. She was holding a coffee, hair perfectly tousled, wearing one of my sweaters. Mine. "Elena?" I said quietly. "We need to talk." She stopped mid-step, eyes flicking to Ava in my arms. Her smile faltered. "Is everything okay?" "Sit down." She did, but not before glancing at the front door like she was already planning her escape. "I know about you and Derek," I said. The words fell like cold steel between us. She blinked. "What?" I didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. Her face drained of color. "He said he was going to tell you while I was in the hospital, Elena." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen." That phrase, that disgusting, cowardly phrase. "I gave you a home," I whispered. "You held my daughter the day she was born. You called her our peanut. And you were sleeping with her father the whole time." Her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't planned. We got close. He was hurting. You were distant. I stood up so quickly Ava stirred in my arms. Don't you dare make this about me. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. I watched them fall without an ounce of sympathy. I had cried enough for both of us already. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. Then why did you? She couldn't answer. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I asked her to leave. Actually, no, I told her. You have 1 hour. Then I never want to see your face again. She tried to hug me on the way out. I turned my back. The door shut behind her, and for a long while, I stood completely still. Ava pressed against my chest, my hands trembling. I felt empty, worse than angry, worse than heartbroken. I felt erased. For weeks, I pretended to be fine. Derek tiptoed around the house, apologizing in whispers, asking to hold Ava, offering to sleep on the couch, but the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stage where every moment had been a lie. Then one morning I walked past the mirror and didn't recognize myself. The dark circles, the slouched posture, the deadness in my eyes. That's when I knew. I had been surviving, but I hadn't started living again. Not yet. So I packed a bag, Ava's clothes, mine, bottles, diapers. I left the house keys on the kitchen table and called my sister. Derek came home that evening to find the silence he'd created finally complete. I didn't leave a note, just absence. Absence speaks volumes when love has already been betrayed. At my sister's, things weren't easy. The nights were long. Ava cried more. I cried more. But I began to breathe again. I stopped waiting for apologies, stopped hoping for someone else to rebuild me. One afternoon, as Ava napped and sunlight streamed through the blinds, I stood over her crib and made a quiet promise. I will never let her believe that love means betrayal, that home means pain, that loyalty means being a fool. I wasn't just healing for me anymore. I was healing for her, and for the woman I once was, the one who trusted too easily, forgave too quickly, and forgot herself in the shadows of people who never deserved her light. Part 3. The apology that came too late. The first message came 2 weeks after I left. Just Derek's name on my phone made my stomach twist. Please, let me explain everything. I didn't respond. The second came a few days later. You don't have to forgive me, but can I at least see Ava? I stared at the screen for a long time. A part of me, the part that still remembered the nights we built cribs and read baby name books, wanted to believe he was being sincere. But sincerity is nothing when it comes wrapped in betrayal. Still, I agreed to a meeting, not for him, for Ava. We met at a neutral place, a quiet cafe near the park. I brought Ava in her stroller, bundled in her little pink coat. Derek looked like he hadn't slept in days. I didn't say much. I let him speak. I messed up, he started, voice hoarse. It wasn't just a mistake. I was selfish. I was scared of becoming a father, scared of everything changing. I folded my arms. So you ran to someone familiar? He nodded, eyes on the ground. You were always so strong, so certain. I felt like I didn't know where I fit anymore. Elena, she just made me feel needed. You were needed, I said quietly. You were everything to me. And instead of standing beside me when I needed you most, you tore us apart. His face crumpled. I hate myself for it, every second. Good, I said. You should. He asked to hold Ava. I hesitated, then passed her over. The way he looked at her, it wasn't fake, it wasn't performative, it was pain, guilt, maybe even love. But that didn't erase what he did. He kissed her forehead, whispered something to her I couldn't hear, and then handed her back, eyes wet. I'll never stop trying to make this right, he said. That's your choice, I replied, but I won't wait for it. He looked up at me like he finally understood. I wasn't the same woman he had betrayed. I was no longer the wife begging for answers. I was a mother building a new future, one he might not be part of. We left the cafe in silence. Over the next few months, life slowly started to take shape again. I went back to work part-time, found a small apartment with sunlight in the mornings and creaky floors that somehow felt more honest than anything I'd known in years. Derek visited Ava on weekends. I kept it civil, short drop-offs, polite small talk. I didn't forgive him, but I wouldn't use our daughter as a weapon. As for Elena, I never heard from her again. Her absence was the only apology she ever gave. One night, after putting Ava to bed, I sat down at the table and opened my journal, something I hadn't done since the early days of our marriage. I wrote, without stopping. about the girl who used to believe love could fix anything, about the woman who now understood that love means nothing without respect, and about the mother who would raise her daughter to know the difference. Because here's the truth no one tells you about betrayal. It doesn't kill you. It carves you. It shapes you. And if you let it, it will rebuild you stronger than before. I wasn't healed, not fully, but I was no longer broken. And that for now was enough. Part 4. A party, a ghost, and a goodbye. Ava's first birthday came faster than I expected. One minute I was rocking her at 3 a.m., whispering lullabies in the dim silence of our new apartment. The next, I was baking a cake she couldn't even eat yet, stringing pastel balloons across my kitchen ceiling, and folding little paper crowns for toddlers who couldn't sit still. There was something symbolic about that day, a full circle, a year since her birth, a year since their betrayal, a year since I became someone I never imagined I'd have to be, a single mother, a survivor, and most importantly, my daughter's whole world. I didn't want a big party, just close friends, a few kids from the neighborhood, and my sister Zoe, who had been my anchor through it all. She brought confetti, cupcakes, and her usual chaotic energy that made the tiny apartment feel alive. I wasn't expecting Derek to come. We'd agreed he could see Ava the day before her birthday, a short visit at the park. But the morning of the party, as I adjusted Ava's pink headband and she giggled at her reflection in a foil balloon, I heard a knock. I opened the door and froze. It was him. Derek stood there, holding a gift bag awkwardly in one hand, a small stuffed elephant peeking out from the top. His eyes darted past me to the room filled with kids, streamers, and the chaos of birthday joy. "I know I wasn't invited," he said. I couldn't stay away. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. Zoe appeared beside me like a protective shield. "You're 2 minutes away from getting a glitter bomb to the face," she muttered under her breath. Derek smiled faintly, but his eyes never left Ava, who was now pulling on the cake tablecloth like a tiny tornado. "I just want 5 minutes," he said. "Please." I looked at Zoe. She gave me that look, the one that asked, "Are you sure?" I sighed. 5 minutes, then you go." He stepped in carefully as though the walls might collapse beneath his guilt. Ava saw him, tilted her head, and smiled. She didn't understand betrayal, she only knew faces, and his was one she recognized. He knelt, held out the elephant, and said softly, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." She clapped and reached for the toy. He laughed. Just for a second, I saw the father he might have been in another life, in a better one. Zoe cleared her throat. "Cake time!" Derek stood and looked at me. "Thank you," he whispered. I nodded, nothing more. Later, after everyone had left and Ava was asleep in her crib with frosting still on her cheeks, I sat at the kitchen table, exhausted. Zoe handed me a glass of wine and dropped into the seat across from me. "You okay?" she asked. I shrugged. "He came," she smiled. "He left. That's probably the best I could hope for." She sipped her drink. "Closure's weird, huh?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, it doesn't feel like a clean ending, more like a faded page." We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that isn't heavy, just real. Then she said, "You're doing good, Em, really good." I looked around at the apartment, at the crumpled streamers and half-eaten cake and the tiny socks kicked off near the crib. I wasn't where I thought I'd be a year ago, but maybe, in a strange way, I was exactly where I needed to be. That night, I tucked Ava in and whispered something I'd never said out loud before. "We're going to be okay." Not because of Derek, not because he apologized, but because I had chosen to rebuild. And with every giggle, every messy dinner, every tiny hand grabbing mine, I was reminded of what mattered. Not the betrayal, not the pain, but the life I still had. The life I was still building, one honest piece at a time. Part 5, the call that shakes the ground. It was just past midnight when my phone rang. I never answered calls after 10 p.m. Too many nights spent staring at a screen, waiting for news I didn't want to hear. But something made me pause. The number was unfamiliar, but there was an urgency in the way it buzzed. "Hello?" My voice cracked. "Emily, it's me, Derek." My heart slammed so hard I could hear it echo. "What? What do you want?" I tried to keep my voice steady. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." I swallowed back the wave of old pain, the betrayal, the nights of tears. "I'm listening." He took a breath. "I was seeing her because I was lost. I was scared. But the truth is, it wasn't just about her. It was about me. I didn't know how to be the man you deserved." "Go on," I whispered, bracing myself. There's more. I've been diagnosed. It's serious. I didn't tell you because I wanted to fix it first. For you, for Ava. But now, I don't know how much time I have. The words hit me like a freight train. Sick. Betrayer. Now. Dying. All tangled together in a nightmare I wasn't prepared for. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know the truth, because I want you to have peace. And because I don't want to be alone when this happens. I hung up. Staring at the black screen, the room suddenly felt too small, too silent. I had survived betrayal. I thought I was healing, but life had thrown me a new kind of heartbreak, one with no clear enemy, only raw fear and uncertain hope. I sat down and closed my eyes, because sometimes healing isn't a straight path. Sometimes it's a winding road with unexpected turns. And I was about to face mine. Part 6. Facing the Unseen Enemy. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, but I couldn't move. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sorrow, confusion, pity. How could I even begin to process what Derek had told me? I looked over at Ava's crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, innocent and unaware of the chaos swirling around her. My heart clenched. She deserved a mother who was strong enough to carry them both. I reached for my phone and called my best friend, Jenna. She answered after a few rings. "Emily, are you okay?" I tried to steady my voice. "Not really. Derek called last night. He's sick. Really sick." There was silence on the other end. Then Jenna's voice softened. "I'm so sorry. What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to run away. Part of me wants to scream at him for everything, the lies, the betrayal, the silence. And yet another part of me feels sorry for him. Jenna sighed. "It's a lot, but you're not alone." For the first time in days, I let myself cry. It was okay to be broken. It was okay to be scared, but it was also time to be brave. Over the next few days, I tried to reach Derek. We spoke briefly on the phone, but it was clear he was fragile, both physically and emotionally. He apologized again, not just for the affair, but for not trusting me enough to share his struggles. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to turn my back and never look back, but the man I loved, the man who had once held me through sleepless nights, was still there, behind the walls of betrayal and illness. One afternoon, as Ava napped, I sat by the window thinking about what I wanted from this story. Revenge, forgiveness, closure, or perhaps peace. I realized that life doesn't always give us clear choices. Sometimes it just asks us to keep moving forward, no matter how broken we feel. And for Ava, for myself, I had to find that strength. Because healing, I was learning, was not about forgetting or pretending. It was about facing the pain and choosing to live anyway. Part 7. Rebuilding from the ashes. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog, thick, heavy, and uncertain. Derek's condition worsened, and the weight of his sickness pressed down on all of us. But beneath that heaviness, something unexpected began to take shape. The slow, painful process of rebuilding. I won't pretend it was easy. Some mornings I barely had the strength to get out of bed. Nights were long and restless, haunted by memories of what had been and fears of what might come. Trust, once shattered, seemed like a distant dream. Yet, in the quiet moments, I saw sparks of hope. I started therapy. It was terrifying at first, opening up about the betrayal, the broken promises, the raw grief. But each session helped me peel back layers of pain I had buried deep inside. I learned that healing wasn't linear, and there was no right way to move forward. Ava became my anchor. Her laughter, her tiny hands clutching mine, reminded me of why I had to keep fighting, not just for myself, but for her. Every smile she gave me was a little victory. Derek and I began to talk again, not about the past, but about the present, about what we needed to do to survive this. Our conversations were fragile and often painful, but they were also honest. And honesty was something we desperately needed. There were days when anger flared, when the betrayal screamed louder than the love. But there were also moments of tenderness, a shared memory, a gentle touch, a tearful apology. Rebuilding a marriage after betrayal is like trying to piece together shattered glass. The cracks never fully disappear, but sometimes they reflect the light in a new way. I realized that forgiveness wasn't about excusing what happened. It was about freeing myself from the poison of resentment. Slowly, I began to find my voice again. A voice that said I was worthy of love, respect, and honesty. It wasn't just about saving my marriage, it was about saving myself. And while the road ahead was still uncertain, I felt ready to walk it step by step. Because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do after loss is to choose hope. Part 8. The new beginning months passed and life settled into a new rhythm, different from before but still ours. The wounds from betrayal hadn't completely healed, and the scars were a reminder of the battles fought. Yet with every passing day, those scars became symbols of survival, resilience, and growth. Derek and I no longer pretended everything was perfect. We acknowledged the pain, the mistakes, and the consequences. But we also celebrated the small victories. A genuine laugh shared, a night spent without arguing, the simple comfort of holding hands again. Our daughter Ava grew up surrounded by cautious hope. We made a promise to ourselves, and to her, to build a home where honesty was the foundation, no matter how fragile. I learned to trust again, not blindly, but wisely. I understood that love doesn't mean losing yourself or ignoring red flags. It means choosing to walk together, even when the path is rough. There were times I doubted myself, times when I wondered if forgiveness was weakness. But I found strength in vulnerability, courage in acceptance, and peace in moving forward. This journey taught me that betrayal isn't the end of a story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter, one where self-love is the ink and healing writes the lines. I am not the same woman I was before. I'm stronger, wiser, and more compassionate to others, and most importantly, to myself. If you're reading this and carrying the weight of betrayal, know this: you are not alone. The road to healing is hard, but it is possible. And on the other side of pain lies hope. This is my story, not of perfect love, but of imperfect courage, of falling apart and finding the pieces again, of losing everything and choosing to live anyway. A new beginning isn't the absence of pain. It's the decision to keep walking forward, no matter how broken you feel. And sometimes that's the bravest love story there is.